Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Canon podcast, your home for in-depth discussion on the lore, the High Republic, and the whole canon of the galaxy far, far away. My name is Matthew, and I'm coming to you from Underworld North Studios in Toronto. And as always, I'm joined from across the continent by your friend and mine, Mr. Joel Davis. Joel, how are you doing this week?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah, there we go. You're just gonna brush by. I brought back the intro, brought back the High Republic. Didn't even notice it.
Oh,
there
yeah.
We go.
Ah, dang it.
It's all good,
I guess I was so used to it now. But you're like, oh wait, yay!
Yeah. No. Yeah. So we're doing we're bringing that back just for one night only until we talk about the High Republic again whenever we next talk about High Republic, because we love it. But for now, we're talking about the Crystal Crown, which is a fun and gripping adventure. It continues Tessa Gratton's strong work from the High Republic of writing diverse young characters stepping out into a larger world. And I just got the chance to interview Tessa all about their impressive Star Wars output and what she brings to our favorite sandbox. So we're going to go through that full interview, and then we're going to give our thoughts on Tessa's comments. And yes, so brought back the old tagline for old time's sake. Before we dive all into that, we'll get the plugs out of the way. You can follow us on Blue Sky at Ion Canon, EYEONCANON.bisky.social. Also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We're there. If audio is more your speed, when this is done, the episode's done, I will upload this straight to Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And yeah, I mean, you'll be able to hear it in full. Why not? Also, want to shout out my other podcast, Tractor Beam Comics Reviews. I'll go into that a little bit in a minute, but just say if you're on Blue Sky, we're trying to build up that platform as well, that account. So look up the Tractor Beam at bis.bisky.social. There, we appreciate a follow. Of course, all over the network. We're part of a network, guys. The Star Wars Underworld Podcast Network, and here on the Underworld YouTube channel, we have YouTube memberships and super chats. If you comment down below, we are happy to respond when we can. If you super chat us, if you're willing to support the channel and the network that way, we'll get to your comment immediately. We promise. Also, of course, memberships, if you're willing to support as well. Last but not least, the Discord server. The Star Wars Underworld Discord server is ripping, it's roaring, it's having a good time, watching documentaries, things. Joel, is there anything coming up or recently occurring?
Well, last Friday we watched the History Channel documentary Star Wars: The Legacy Revealed. Nice. Came out in 2007, made by the History Channel. Mm-hmm. And fun fact, Matthew got to catch at least the first 20 minutes of it with us. It was a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. It was weird seeing faces. Like we saw a young Stephen Colbert. Josh Whedon, of all people, before he got canceled, was there. Back when his career was on the rise, before we found out, oh, he's kind of a scummy bag. J.J. Abrams, before he made his Star Trek film.
That's true.
Before that, I think. Yeah. Wait, when did the Star Trek film come
2009,
out?
2009. So.
Oh, this is 2007. So this is even before then. So this was his lost date. So this is before that. And one Newt Gingrich appeared many times in this documentary. Funny enough. So yeah, it's a fun documentary. It deals with all 6 of the movies because they were already out, and it's really fun. It's non-Lucasfilm sanctioned, so it's just sort of something the History Channel put up. So yeah.
I mean, I'm sure George Lucas was like, yes, this is fine.
Well, they got to use clips from the movie, so I'm sure they could get some approval. But
yeah. Also, not the first time Newt Gingrich would show up in Star Wars. Fun fact. There we go. Yeah. So again, events like that happening all the time. And of course, conversations about Star Wars, about Marvel, about other things going on. So do check that out. Also, finally, last but not least, there we go. I mentioned the Tractor Beam Comics Reviews every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Chris Abbott and I get together on this here YouTube channel and talk comics that came out that day. And this coming Wednesday, it's number 5 by Alex Segura, and Boba Fett Black, White, and Red #1 Really looking forward to that book. Always excited by what the artists end up doing with the limitations of color in black, white, and red, because it can only be in black, white, and red. Those are the rules. I don't make them up. We're looking forward to that as well. So yeah, check that out. Wednesday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on the Underworld YouTube channel. All right. I've spoken a lot, as you'll see. Joel, what you got going on in Star Wars this week?
Well, I was thinking about our last episode, which was a lot of fun.
Mhm.
And I was kind of thinking to myself, as something I didn't bring up, which I wish I did, and I'll try not to make it too long. We got stuff to
Mhm.
do. Is there a difference between regimes and institutions? And can institutions survive regimes and go
Mhm.
forth to the next regime? Because I think there is an argument to say you can. You can.
Yeah.
Like I kind of like here's kind of
Oh,
I'll kind of give
okay.
you two examples. One's kind of bland, but the other's kind of more extreme. Well, not bland, just more regular. And the
Mhm.
regular one is Canada. So you know, no,
Yeah.
I love Canada. Canada's not bland. It's syrupy. Um,
Syrup. I have syrup
so
in my fridge.
you
Sorry.
know, one day the Mark Carney, well, that's your prime minister's name, right?
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, that guy. He's not going to be prime minister forever, and the Liberal Party will probably not be in power. Sorry, Canada, but one day you'll have a conservative prime minister again. I actually think that you just got lucky that with that one with this election. It's like I
Yeah, a
don't know,
little bit.
you'll dodge a bullet the second time. You might not.
Mhm.
Um, but uh, but when the conservatives or whoever is back in power or in power,
Yeah.
the institution of parliament's still going to be there. The
Mhm.
institution of a Supreme Court, whatever version of court you have, is there. You're
Yeah.
going to still have your governor general. You're going to have your prime minister, your cabinet, your Canadian army. Those
Mhm.
institutions are still going to be there. It's just not going to be under the Liberal Party regime. It's under
Mm.
whoever's next. So that's the kind of the boring example of like institutions stay, but regimes
Mhm.
change.
Yeah.
um, a more extreme example, but it's one I think it's a good one, is after World War One. The Germans are no longer the
Yeah.
German Empire. The Weimar Republic is born.
Mhm.
They get rid of the Kaiser. But the institution of the German army, the army of Prussia, the army of
Mhm.
Frederick the Great, uh, remains more or less intact. That officer corps institution, which is like hundreds of years old,
Mhm.
remained intact. In fact, that was kind of the big reason why they got rid of the Kaiser, because the army was like, well, we want to stay in power, and if we have to get rid of the Kaiser to do it, oh well, so be it.
Mhm.
We'll team up with the Social Democrats, and they can have their little republic as long as the army stays in power. And then the army officer institutional corps is like, hey, maybe this Hitler guy can be actually better used to us, and he'll tear up the tree of Versailles and give us all the money. And he did. And that institution stayed in power until 44, 45, until Germany just got completely decimated in World War II, and nothing
Mhm.
was left. So there's some extreme regime changes of you go from
Yeah.
constitutional authoritarian monarchy to republic to dictatorship, but the German army as an institution remains intact. And that's not even getting to the bureaucratic institutions that remained intact.
Mhm.
So I just kind of think that it's interesting, um, kind of looking at Star Wars, I guess, and like, okay, these regimes change, but what institutions actually stayed as the same?
Mhm.
Is the Senate just the same institution, just brought back?
Right. Mhm.
Obviously, we know that when the New Republic took over, they didn't keep a lot of the Empire's institutions. There's no New Republic mobs. That institution's gone. There's no New
Yeah.
Republic Stormtrooper Corps. That institution's gone. I would say argue
Mhm.
that the New Republic military is pretty much military built from scratch off the Rebel fleet,
Mhm.
that just taking over the old Imperial military and just putting new commanders in charge.
Mhm.
So that's just kind of my thoughts of like political regimes versus institutions, and how you can kind of separate them in some way. In other ways, you kind of can't. But I
Yeah.
guess it depends on what the institution was there for in the first place. But yeah, that's my thoughts.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm sleepy. I'm okay. I have my decaf. Promise. New Republic is interesting. We for this very question, we talk about the Republic, the Galactic Republic, then the Empire, and then we jump straight to the first, because there's so much continuity in that. I mean, just even Again, even the ship designs. Uh, I think Mon Mothma claims the New Republic Senate to be a continuation of the Galactic Senate, but really, what it's more a continuation. This is one thing we didn't really get to last week. More a continuation of the Rebel Alliance Council, right? That you see on Yavin, right? It's just he gets just bigger and elected on Chandrila. I mean, who knows? Maybe there was an unelected aspect to the Rebel Alliance Council too. So, um, yeah, it's a good question. I think when it comes, there's a distinction to be made between changing government and regime change is, um, I mean, definitely a stronger qualitative. I'm using that term these days, qualitative, a stronger, yeah, a clearer sense of, um, this is a new thing, right? Um, the right point you're getting at maybe is the same people can come in and be the same thing. Tarkin is a great example of that. Pride is a great example of that. Can carry over. Mom often to some extent, she carries over from the Galactic Senate to the Imperial Senate, and then from the Rebel Alliance to the New Republic. But those are dramatic changes. Those are big switches. I mean, the least we brought up the France example, the least dramatic type of regime change. What was that? And I think also
And
in
perhaps the first
Italy.
time when they beheaded the king, that was pretty dramatic.
Well, that was dramatic. I mean, the fourth to the fifth,
Oh
right?
yeah, that
Was I mean, the fourth was kind of the Fourth Republic was kind of this transitional. Let's get organized after the World War II, and then the Fifth Republic is, I mean, what is what De Gaulle was going for ultimately, I
right.
think. So yeah, but that's but changing government, if whenever you know Carney has to call an election and the NDP wins, just kidding, let's hope, if anything, if a conservative wins, I mean, when in the 90s to the 2000s, we went from liberals holding power for over a decade to Stephen Harper and the conservatives. It felt like a regime change. You could use the word sea change, in a lot of ways that the bureaucracy then operated because of ideological shift. But the I mean, the Constitution stayed the same, right?
Right.
It was still the written and unwritten parts of the Constitution stayed the same. And so, I mean, regimes can evolve, right? We talk about the federal, provincial, federal, state relationship. Sorry, that can evolve, but yeah, regime change is a very clear thing. What is interesting, again, I think, going back to the early thing, are the actors and the people and certain institutions that do carry over. And that is fascinating too. So
Like the military.
yeah, so or a heavily centralized office of the chancellor changing his name. You know.
Right, true.
Oh man. Sorry guys. I'm okay. Um so yeah, do you have any further thoughts on that one?
No, I mean, I kind of get what you're saying about the
Mm,
regime change in the Canadian sense as well. Like,
yeah.
a lot of people would argue in America from 1933 to 19. Honestly, people would say 79.
Yeah.
You have what they call the New Deal regime, where even
Mm,
though Republicans did have the presidency from time to time, it's still kind of FDR kind of set the tone for like a
yeah.
lot of what we thought. And then Reagan comes along, and we kind of haven't gotten out of that mindset yet.
Mm-hmm,
Trump's like the most devolved version of that, which people argue is like the final
mm-hmm,
gasp of the Reagan era, just before something new takes over. We don't know what, and that's kind of the scary thing.
interesting.
But again, we haven't technically changed the Constitution. All 50 states are still here. New
That's
York's
true.
still there. The Senate's still there. The House still there.
Mm-hmm.
All the departments are still here to some extent. We've added some stuff. Like ICE wasn't a thing until like the 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
Department of Homeland Security again added in the
Right.
Bush during the Bush eras. But it's sort of like it's regime change and evolution, but it's not like
Mhm.
complete 180 where we just or a revolution for sure.
Yeah.
At least in some context. So it's. I mean, it's one of those things where like we could have a long debate of like what counts as regime change and
Yeah.
revolution and blah 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 blah. So yeah, I'll end it there.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, definitely the bureaucratization in Washington, from FDR to Nixon, and then Watergate happens, and people don't trust the president anymore, and so the president acts untrustworthy, or president dismantles the bureaucracy. Reagan dismantles the bureaucracy. Um, yeah, and that, I mean, no wonder Obamacare was just, let's let insurance companies give a subsidy to insurance companies, because Reagan had dismantled the bureaucracy already. Yeah, well, that's interesting.
Mhm.
And yet Palpatine doesn't dismantle the bureaucracy; he builds it up and solidifies it.
I mean, I'd argue Reagan does the same thing, just with different departments,
Oh yeah,
more about the more of the military side.
the
Trump's
CIA.
doing that right now. Well, he's dismantling the bureaucracy, which
Yeah, but also change the Department of War. Yeah.
funny enough, they stopped calling it that. They've already given up calling it that, so they've given
Oh,
up.
funny. Okay, is that just today or yesterday or something? Because yeah.
Oh, Stephen Miller did tweets and he called it the Department of Defense
Okay.
again, DOD. So it's like you're not even going to call it the Department of War.
I mean, I don't
Okay.
think that was an actual legal thing that they did. I think it was just marketing.
Well, yeah, that's why I always talk. I mean,
Yeah.
that's why I don't want to get too much about Trump, but like that's why I always say his regime's shallow. It's like it's all marketing. He doesn't have like the muscle to back some of this stuff up. It's
Yeah.
very
So
like the security agencies are just completely a shambles at this point.
yeah.
Wasn't like George
Um.
Bush.
Fun times. Fun times. I got two things. One does continue this whole conversation, but before I do that, I will say I got a chance to see Wake Up Dead Man, the third installment of the Knives Out trilogy ish, by Ryan Johnson, of course, who, the man behind The Last Jedi, one of the greatest films of all time. There we go. And yeah, and I won't give any kind of spoilers, but it was really well done. I did get it kind of lost a little bit trying to figure out all the twists and turns, but in the end, yeah, it was really um, a good look at character, and that's again Ryan Johnson using structure, using surprise, using twists and turns to show his character.
I wonder
Um,
if those movies are less confusing on second viewing when you kind of know
oh
what's going to
yeah, I'm
happen.
sure it's gonna be, yeah. When I see it again, it'll be
Click.
much easier to follow. Yeah. So, but also, Wake Up Dead Jedi. Like, it's not exactly one to one, but Jeff Bridges' character um, has maybe some kind of parallels to Luke, just a little bit, not primarily, but it's in there. It's in there a little bit. So I'll say that. Yeah, but again, Ryan Johnson did it again, and every all three of all three of those Knives Out films are so distinct from each other. It's like, because I mean, I just watched Glass Onion for the first time
Nice.
a few weeks ago, and yeah, that's nothing like the first Knives Out. And then this Wake Up Dead Man is nothing like this Knives Out. Even yeah, Blanc is not a different character, but significantly just you get another layer to him in this one. So yeah, looking forward to seeing the reactions to all that. Might even do something with my day job on.
You're getting a little staticky, just so you know.
Yeah, my internet's, as you'll see in this interview coming up, my internet is not the best today. But we'll power through. We'll power through. There we go. I think I paused my VPN, so we'll see. I'll resume it and just see if that makes things worse.
Oh no.
But yeah, the other thing I wanted to say is you're continuing this political conversation. Let's go, Charlie.
Uh-oh, you're freezing even more now. I don't think the world wants you to talk about that. Then
Nobody wants. Okay, pausing
I'm
for half
kidding.
an hour.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But
No,
make sure
nobody
you.
does want. So good.
No, no. I mean, just I just want to make sure you're gonna get your point across when your internet's not going down.
Yeah,
Otherwise, you're
I mean,
frozen.
no, it's true. Nobody wants me to talk about Charlie Kirk. Don't take
Oh, oh, you froze again. Dang, it really
goodness.
doesn't want.
Okay, I'm
Oh, it's
gonna.
getting bad now. The internet really
I'll be
doesn't
back.
want you to. Yeah, it really
Maybe
doesn't
it's.
want. It's the CIA people. They're after us. I can tell you.
We're doing now. We're doing good now.
Say some stuff. Say some words.
So, you know,
There we
well,
go.
there's so many takes, so many thoughts, so many feels. Um, I have my thoughts about what the motive matters, and whatnot. But the one of the things I thought of was the warning of Andor, Emmy award winning Andor, and its Vauncey conference scene, and the Dedra, Krennic and Dedra, they're chatting and saying, Dedra says all you need is some Gorman rebels to do the wrong thing, and that giving the Empire the excuse to crack down. And right now I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, what do we do with that? Do I want to be a prophet of doom and gloom? No, I want to say let's take that as a warning to say let's lower the temperature. Even Mike Johnson saying let's lower the temperature. You know, yeah, there are some folks who do want to capitalize on this, on both sides, but uh, I just think, I mean, my first thought is, oh no, this is going to make things worse, and I think let's not give ammunition, literal and otherwise, to folks who want to capitalize on this, folks who want to pull a Gorman and crack down, um, because people are afraid, because people are anxious, and whether or not you think they have a right to be anxious and afraid, the fact is they're anxious and afraid. And if we can start to accept the fact that people are going to have feelings and that feelings are valid, and there are ways through to help guide people, for people to process those things if they can, through this, without just simply but yes, those buts are also valid, and also I probably agree with them. However, uh if there's ever a time for the transformative power of dialogue, it's now. And I think about when I was at San Diego Comic Con, or no, New York Comic Con, and I asked Todd Stashwick, who's on Star Trek Picard, what do we do? How do we, American Thanksgiving, well, Canadian Thanksgiving was just passed, and American Thanksgiving was a few weeks away. What do we do with these conversations? And the election was a few weeks away. And he said, everyone comes from somewhere, and listen.
There a
And I
Canadian
think,
election?
no, I mean, it was last October.
Oh,
So,
oh,
this was last October in the U.S. election. Yeah. Um,
sad.
I think, no, not everybody can do this, and that's the thing about privilege. Is there are some conversations that are simply unsafe for people. Don't go those. Don't do those conversations. You don't have to have those conversations. But I think you'll catch more. I think the folks who can uh, spare some honey to catch the flies, who also have some vinegar stored up, sure. But I wonder if we'll catch flies with honey than vinegar, and we'll just fly away anyway. But yeah, so that's my hope, that we don't give the Krennics and Dedramiros of the world the literal ammunition, and that the folks around them, around the Palpatines of our day, uh, are kind of block off the Palpatine of our day, from capitalizing on this to crack down. Like the Speaker of the House of Representatives, right? Is like, Let's
Yeah,
not.
but I guess my counter to you would be, I don't think they care. I think Trump will do it even if he has no excuse. I think he will too.
Well, he
He's already
already
probably
has,
done it.
right? I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
in
Oh,
L.A.,
there we go.
Chicago, right? You know,
Yeah. Although here's the nice thing. It does,
are we
and
good? We
I've
good?
been keep. Can I? Oh, hello. Yep, we're good.
Yeah.
Oh, here's the nice thing, because I've been keeping a little bit more, probably more an eye on this,
Hmm.
than maybe you have. It does
Hmm.
seem like they're backing off. But I think that's because they caught the guy, and he's like some weird esoteric. He has no real ideology, so it's like, oh shoot, we can't spin this because it's
Yeah.
like, I think the aliens and Trump and the Epstein files are working for the Martians.
We have no idea. Yeah, you can't pigeonhole this guy. That's the wild thing.
Which I'm going to be honest with you, Matthew.
Hmm.
If you actually listen to like a lot of if you gotta go off, if you actually like travel America and go offline,
Hmm.
you're gonna find out that most people in this dang country have like incoherent ideologies. Now, maybe not to the extreme of like
Sure.
the Martian people are coming. Thank God. Otherwise, I think we'd be really in trouble.
Yeah.
But I trust me. There are people who are like, really, that all right, or it's like just something
Hmm.
akin to like, if you were to tell somebody, hey, I have the free healthcare that's
Hmm.
paid for and stuff like that, blah 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 blah, and we have like, I don't know, factories owned by workers.
Hmm.
Oh, okay. Then like then you might get a guy going, hey, that actually sounds like a good idea. Like, I get to share in the profits of my company. That sounds like a good idea. And then if
Hmm.
I were to tell them, did you know that's socialism? Then they're like, socialism? I don't want you damn Russians in my state. But you just agree with me. Like, I don't care. I want you darn Russians out of my red commie, blah, blah, blah. Oh dear, Matthew's frozen. I will continue. We will remove this Matthew and add this one.
There we go.
Uh, hello.
How's it going? Are we good?
Very good. How much have you been hearing so far, my
Well, you said you ended with that's socialism.
Yeah. So the guy would be like, but you just agree with me like 5 seconds ago.
Yeah.
I don't care. So, our
Yeah.
country is weird and esoteric already.
Hmm.
Although maybe that's true of a lot of places, and like
It's true of the species, Joel.
that's true.
It's true of the species,
So
but
thanks. I do think I think two things. One, if they want to escalate, they'll escalate regardless. Like, they will
Mhm.
not want, they don't need excuses. Like, we
Mhm.
can be on our best behavior and they'll still fire. The second thing
Yeah.
is, I do think they're backing down because I don't think they have a case, really.
Right.
I'm already kind of seeing people move on, which is sad in the sense of people move. Well, to be fair, I mean, look how many people move on from just regular school shooters, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think there was another school shooting that day somewhere else, and
Yeah.
like
There
13 kids
was
died. It's like, ah,
in
well.
Colorado, I think. Yeah.
So, there's that. And kind of the third thing, which again is something I went back to the other day, is
Mhm.
I'm just not as convinced that we have, and this is both a problem and a good thing, we have
Mhm.
the state capacity for the kind of extreme coordinated state repression that I think even if Trump wants in his darkest soul and his advisors, I just don't think
Yeah.
because of how he's just dismantling everything. So, like, and I'll try to make it on because I know we want to get to High Republic.
Mhm.
But just like, how like ICE was given like a bajillion dollars in the budget.
Yeah.
Just because you get a bajillion dollars, which isn't good, that doesn't mean you're gonna be effective or you're gonna
Right.
use the money wisely or correctly. It'll probably go to a bunch of weird contract scams, and I mean, like, look at the people they're hiring. I've heard like they're having like hiring problems, and just like the guy who's the new set, the older Superman, not the current one, thank God, but one of
Oh
like
yeah, Dean Kane.
Dean Kane is like, like he's just out of shape and can't do it. So it's like, here's our elite secret police. They're like, heart attack, right?
Wow.
Like, they're not the elite, scary stormtroopers. Like, these guys are barely making it. So
Yeah.
that's just kind of the observations I've been noticing. I mean, yeah, even as a leftist, I don't think just randomly blasting people is a good idea, period.
Mm.
Not even the most ardent leftists in the old days actually believed in that. Actually, Lenin himself was like, don't shoot the Tsar. That's not going to do anything. They'll just replace it with another one. You need organized militant action like strikes and stuff.
Hmm.
So it's it's definitely just be on your toes, and
Yeah,
I of course a lot of my transgender friends are like, well, they're not going to miss him because what he said. So
I know. But my point being, though, is, yeah, we can say it was bad tactics, but more importantly, let's all be shocked by this. Let's all be spooked by this, including, uh, including
I mean,
folks
there was a Minnesota
closer to
Democrat
Trump's.
who died, a
Yeah, and
congresswoman. So that's not good.
so I know, and what was just as horrific, and just a few months ago, and um, was the state assembly woman, I think. Um,
Wasn't
but
she
yeah,
Tim Walz's lieutenant governor, or am I thinking of somebody else who died? Uh-oh, he froze again. Shoot. His internet is really not good. Well, definitely it no bueno, folks. It no bueno. While we wait for Matthew, how are you all doing out there, folks, in internet land? How are you handling it? Staying safe? Staying cool? Uh, you know, are we good? Oh, there we go.
I hope so.
Uh-oh. There we
Yeah,
go.
we're good. We're good. Yeah, this bodes well for what we're about to try to do, but that's okay. Yeah, what was I gonna say? Again, my point isn't so much about tactics. It's about, um, let's. I'm hoping that there are folks even in Trump's inner circle who are able to say, this, who are spooked by this. Able to say, let's not. This is getting
But
out of hand.
sadly, I think they
You
are
know,
spooked. I think they're spooked in the we need to crush them all kind of way at this point. I think he got rid of any of the level-headed people
right?
and by the end. So
But well, hopefully Mike Johnson. Hopefully he has
he
some
doesn't.
say, or he doesn't. Okay, never
No.
mind. I can only hope. You're probably also right. Hopefully, anyway, we've talked about politics quite a bit. Let's talk about politics some more. There we go.
Yay.
Sort of. We do get into that a bit. I'm gonna have to cue this up again because my internet was all uh silly, but there you go. Might as well dive into our main topic. Sorry guys, I'm just gonna do this. So yeah, I was able to get, as mentioned, sit down with Tessa Gratton about an hour and 20 minutes ago, and so hopefully this will work, guys. We did have some technical difficulties, and as you've seen, my internet not doing too well, so hopefully this works out the rest of the way. But yeah, well, so the plan is I'm going to play the actual interview, and at certain points I'll I'll stop and pause it, and we can chat about it. Joel, if there's something you really need to pause it, maybe just not too often, but you want me to pause it, then we can. So without
Okay.
further ado, see how this will work. Now here, and yes, and I gotta fast forward slightly. Hopefully that's right. But anyways, yes. Without further ado, here's hoping this works. Defy the storm and temptation of the force, as well as the short story "A Closed Fist Has No Claws" in the anthology "Tales of Light and Life." And more recently, of course, she wrote "Acolyte," "The Crystal Crown," and new books outside the galaxy, far, far away. Got a show. Thanks for coming on. Welcome to the Ion Can podcast. I think I might have to fast forward.
Oh, thank you. I'm really excited to be here. I'm looking forward to digging into the Crystal Crown in particular. I haven't had a chance to talk about it much.
Well, that's great. That's great. Good one of the first pods to chat about it. Story, we dive in. So I'm in Toronto, and for Fan Expo Canada 2 or 3 weeks ago, Daphne Keane was there, and I don't know if you know the story, but if you heard the story yet, but someone came up in the line for autographs and had her sign the book, signed the Crystal Crown. And so, I mean, she definitely, that's how she found out about it. So, and she others, so she thought it was really cool. So
that's
there we
great.
go.
Yeah, I hope that if she gets a chance to read it, she enjoys it. I had a lot of fun, watching her bring that character to life and finding my own ways to take what she did with Jackie and try to infuse the book with that. So I hope that it is a nice, like, perfect circle.
Oh yeah, her fun, playful, curious performance definitely comes through in that character. Speaking of cons, so this was originally set up, this interview, as part of San Diego Comic-Con, and so it's a good kind of wraparound to get into this. Looking back at San Diego, I'm just curious what the highlights were for you, what it's like to be an author at and a Star Wars author at that, at such a major convention, and of course, how does it compare to last year when the Crystal Crown was announced?
It's really exciting. I feel like I'm in a really good place when it comes to big cons like San Diego, because I have a job. I'm there to do like a few specific things. And so I can keep my schedule like, okay, I have to be here at this point. I have to be in this ballroom. I have to be at the Random House booth or the Disney booth or whatever. And so it gives me a really good, path through everything so that I don't get overwhelmed, because I am not a crowd person. And so it's very easy for me to get overwhelmed. And at the same time, I'm not even close to like famous enough that I can't just wander around and enjoy whatever I want. Like, I can go to other panels, I can just walk around the floor. And so it's really a perfect place for me right now to have a job to do, and also nobody bothers me or comes up to me or like anything to like break my very careful like curation of my crowd experience.
Yeah, San Diego, it's a monster. It
really is.
Yeah, it's quite a lot. Now this year's Comic-Con was just days before the Crystal Crown came out, and was available at the Random House booth. It was good to see there. It's been a month and a half. As you mentioned, it's one of the first times you're getting to talk about it more in depth. What's it like having the book out in the wild for folks to read and digest?
It's always really nice because I feel like I just get to let go of it. When you're leading up to the book coming out, it's still, only a few people have read it, and it's still like not quite intimate when it's a Star Wars, because there's so much that people are already aware of. But once it's been out in the world for several weeks, it's kind of nice because I feel like I can get back to like being a fan of Star Wars as opposed to a creator of Star Wars, which is also great, but it's a very different experience when I'm talking about the Crystal Crown leading up to its publication, where my purpose is to like, sell the book. And then once it's out, I can just be like, yeah, this is fun. The Acolyte's great. I love Jackie, and I don't have to have that like pressure of the promotion, I guess. And so we're really getting to that another sweet spot for me where, my work is done. So now I just get to enjoy the Crystal Crown and the Acolyte and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's done. It's well, over here, right? It's
exactly.
You're in Toronto, right? But it actually kind of reminds me, it's the other side of Dave Filoni's kind of tree of secrecy. Well, this is kind of the forest of openness. To be poetic there. I don't know.
Yeah.
There you go. But within that tree, I mean, there was just the experience of writing it. Seemed like an interesting one because during the panel at San Diego, you mentioned you had written a darker, perhaps more tragic story, at least a draft. I don't know. I don't quite remember how far along you were in that. And then you saw the Acolyte season, episode 5, and we don't need to remember what happens there. And you mentioned during the panel then that you had to pivot to write a lighter, less tragic draft that ended up being the story we got. I won't ask what the original story was, specifics, but obviously I'm curious. I'd admit that. But I'm more wondering, what was that pivot like? What was your process going through the character arcs, the beats, the plot, and the overall structure, if there were any kind of things you had to do to revise it?
So the story itself didn't change.
Okay.
The actual like plot and what happens to the characters, none of that changed. I had only written about a quarter of the first draft when episode 5 occurred. And it wasn't necessary to change this. It's a very contained adventure that these Jedi and Padawan go on, and doesn't affect, like, on a plot level, anything that happens in the Acolyte. It's all like character and relationship fun. And so the real thing that changed was how I felt about the characters and the way I was thinking about their characterization and their character arcs. So what really changed was I was not, I didn't want to take anything too seriously. And I wanted to try and have just a really joyful time for myself, because as a fan, I was so devastated by what happened to these characters. And it was like a very affecting episode, because it really just pivots the entire TV show. And I didn't want readers of the Crystal Crown to really be like worried about that, or like constantly reminded, this is going to be so sad. I was trying to find a balance of, these characters are alive now and they don't know what's going to happen to them. We do. So how do I deal with that, like with a sense of humor and like still love? And I hope that's what I was really trying to do, to balance the humor in particular, because I think that's something that has to change once you know how and when and how brutally a character is going to die. You just have to either be like, well, this is super depressing, or let's make some death jokes.
And that led to that really fantastic running joke through the book. Few times. I won't spoil what it is, but when folks reading it, you'll know it when you see it. But maybe to think in terms of more literary theory a little bit here, the sense of future tragedy, and it makes me think of stories set on Alderaan, for example. We feel the impending doom, and you made a great call in using humor. Claudia Gray in Leia, Prince of Alderaan, for example, is more poignant. There's some impending doom. It's in some corner of our minds, even though we don't know, even if the story isn't about the Death Star or anything connected to it. And obviously, this set, or however long this is set before Yorda and Jecki are killed by Chimera. That's what happens in episode 5. There you go. But this gets me to that perennial question that I think it's good to ask every Star Wars author, especially, and every IP author or author with an IP. They have to relate to and are limited to what we see on screen. So how do you approach that relationship between novels and while also being, this is the trick, right, to being substantial enough to warrant its own publication? And the qualitative point I want to kind of make, I really love the focus of the new characters of Cydia and Leo and Ross. Frankly, just my own perspective, I found they actually had a more prominent and interesting role than Jecki and Yorda, and I was excited by that. New characters that we get to meet. Where, is that part of how you approach it, and are there other things that you bring, to that relationship between paper and screen?
I think this is a really good and interesting question, and I think several of those of us who have written primarily for the High Republic,
Mm-hmm.
we have a different perspective on this because, you know, several of us had never written any other Star Wars other than the High Republic. And when we were writing it, there was no visual media aside from comics, which is still written word, brought to life with, beautiful illustrations. But it's very different from all of the Star Wars like tie-in novels that have come in the 45 years before that, where they're, usually during the Skywalker saga era, and they do directly tie to a movie or something like that. And so I got my start where I didn't have to worry about any of the movies or TV shows other than on storytelling and have to tie anything in to the movies. And so it was a big departure for me to write the Crystal Crown because it's my fifth Star Wars novel. And it's the first one where it was directly linked to a big media, like a visual media property. And to be honest, I was kind of like at a loss at first. I was like, I don't know how to do this. What do I even think about? But, one of the things you touched on is, the fact that it is a prequel, and a lot of Star Wars deals with all like different timelines surrounding these big galactic moments. Like Alderaan is a great example. And so I kind of thought about when it comes to, the larger Star Wars properties, what do I enjoy about different stories that could be considered prequels to, like a TV show? Like my favorite example is Rogue One, because I think it is incredibly well written. And everything really serves a purpose. And it's really just about this one thing, which is like one line from one of the movies about all the, a lot of good, rebels gave their lives so we could get this one piece of information. I think Mon Mothma says it. And that one line is the whole point of Rogue One, basically. And so, there are the whole prequel trilogy, and then Andor is a prequel to a prequel, like we really deal with this a lot in Star Wars. And so that made me actually relax a little bit, because I was like, this is something that Star Wars readers aren't going to be tripped up by. The fact that this is a prequel, they're going to read it if they want to know what was going on in these characters' lives 2 or 3 years before the show. And then after basically all of the characters die, it was still a relief, because I was like, people still want to read or watch movies like Rogue One, where everybody's going to die, but you still want to watch it if it's well written, and the settings and the actors and all that kind of things come together to give you a really good story. There is still a readership or a viewership for that. And so it's one of the really cool things about Star Wars, how big it is. You can go and find examples of someone who has done this before me,
Right.
And so I'm not really sure that quite answered your question, but I tried to come at it as a High Republic author, where I was bringing new characters, new planets, all these new and different complicating factors like how different the Jedi are during the High Republic, because there's tens of thousands of them as opposed to a much smaller, more insular Jedi temple and council in like the prequel trilogy. And so yeah, it was I have a unique perspective as a creator to come into a bigger media piece of Star Wars.
And just gonna pause there because I mean, it was really made a really interesting point of that her way into writing a prequel was to say, we're used to prequels and we're just used to canon connections. I was the way direction I was wondering about was the focus on character, and we'll get to that soon in the interview, I think. But what fascinated me, she went into, this is just part of Star Wars DNA, whether it's screen or it's paper or anything in between. It's still there is something to be canon, even if it doesn't necessarily work that way. We're, as readers, as the audience, the content is the audience, we're used to that. So I found that was I mean, just even in her own process of coming to this novel, and yet, I mean, even just the point about when she mentioned in San Diego that this that the fact that you're seeing Jordan Jackie die, she had to go through and make some changes. That running joke through the thing, it definitely added some levity. We're gonna get into character soon, but before we do, anything in that, Joel, that stands out to you?
Well, no, I think you're right. I think, Star Wars is used to prequels, and Star Wars is kind of used to jumping in the middle of the action. Right. I mean, go back to 77, The New Hope, which was retroactively called Episode 4. So it's like, the audience later was like, oh, wait a minute, we actually skipped 3 episodes? What happened? No one got confused then, and still people don't get confused now.
That's true.
But no, I mean, right. There's certainly, I mean, look at Andor. It is a prequel. It is a prequel to Rogue One,
which is a prequel,
which is itself a prequel. It's a prequel to a prequel. Andor is one of the best Star Wars shows out there, and it won an Emmy. The Emmy-winning Andor. Now, right, and a lot of it's because, well, he's gonna die, but we're not really, you're captivated by the character and the story and the obviously there's new characters too, so I think that also helps. Like if it was just Andor, I think it'd be a little boring, but it's like, oh, there's all these new characters and these situations and these themes, so it's like, okay, well, it doesn't matter, he's gonna die. Like, it's still like, it's the tension's still there, even though we know he's gonna get out of this, like, we know he's gonna get out of the jail cell eventually, but it's still, the tension's still there because it's just executed so well, and you kind of also wonder what's gonna happen to all these other prisoners as well, and etc., etc. So yeah, there's obviously that, and I think she's kind of just getting to the main point of make it good.
Make it good.
Make it good.
A question I didn't get a chance to, just didn't have time to ask, was a question about the word stakes and how this dreaded concept of stakes, and how Game of Thrones and closer to Crystal Crown explicitly mentions the Hunger Games. I'd say it kind of narrowed our sense of stakes. It says if someone dies, then that's the only important thing that can happen, and then everything else is just like there's the extremes. Either you die or nothing happens at all, and there's this middle ground where lots of stories get told where no one dies, and they can still be compelling. So definitely turns to character, turns to setting, turns to context, and I do hope we can become you broaden our sense of that again. Like, what are the stakes for Jordan Jackie? What are the stakes for these other characters that show up in this book, Cydia, Ross, and Leo.
I mean,
So yeah,
I think stakes are always something in Star Wars. I think Star Wars fans themselves, and also I think authors kind of have to find that where it's sort of like we're so used to the saga films and the stakes are galactic, they're
yeah,
huge, they're
mhm,
rise and fall of empires,
mhm,
and I think that you know some of it's just the nature of the fact that these books kind of have to take place in a certain time frame.
mhm.
So you can't Jordan Jackie, yeah,
Jordan,
Countess would.
yeah,
They can't fight the Yuzong Vong that bomb and Coruscant and terraform in half the galaxy because obviously certain things from the movie still have to happen.
yeah,
So the stakes have to be. You have to make the stakes. Maybe you can't make the stakes like these big bombs, but like if you write it good, then you can believe the
mhm,
stakes of like, oh no, I'm not gonna be able to get my best friend a birthday present.
yeah,
And obviously I know that's not what happens. I didn't read the book, but I know that's not what happens. You know, Still impactful because like, oh, I want to know what they get the birthday present. Especially if it's done
mhm,
well. And
mhm,
you kind of have to work with that sort of thing.
mhm. Yeah,
And obviously, so I think that's stakes don't mean just the world ends. Sometimes stakes mean like, oh no, are they going to ask each other out to the dance? I hope they do.
yeah.
Otherwise, he's going to get on with her, and I don't want that. I want those two to get together.
Mhm. You get there. The audience cares if they get into how much the character cares, right?
Right.
That's really how you do it, right? And in how big the stakes are matters how big they are to the character. So I'm going to keep going here because we'll get right into that in terms of these these younger characters. So gonna push the wrong button. There we go. Yeah, I mean that's true. And one of the things I love so much, and I say this all the time on this podcast, love about the High Republic was the freedom for you guys to just do whatever, explore whatever. I mean, not whatever, but the
Yeah.
specific trajectory to actually make something really distinct and unique. And I do want to jump into High Republic very soon. I just have maybe two more questions about Crystal Crown because you talked about the wider galactic context, and this is near the beginning of the book. The wider context is the Republic is still expanding. Their planets are considering joining up or not, and one of them is Selene, where the book is set. And I mentioned Cydia and Rose Arthas, the children of basically the head of government, and Leo Graff, and of course that name should ring familiar to the folks who are watching, listening. The last name, at least. But these are young characters who, coming of age characters who, are impacted and have really well thought out perspectives and care about it when it comes to joining the wider galaxy, and of course the personal stakes involved, especially for Leo. Um, YA before, you're definitely experienced with that. What was it like putting these three characters and crafting these three characters in that grand galactic context?
I love writing teenagers. I've written several adult novels and will always come back
Mhm.
to adult fantasy and like epic fantasy, which I think Star Wars fits into. Um, but young adult is really where my origin
Mhm.
as a professional writer is and why I wanted to be a professional writer. And teenagers tend to be in really, they're having a really tough time, partly because they're being forced to choose who they think they want to be for the rest of their lives. Whether it's, in like our world and they just have to pick, are they going to go to college? Are they going to go to trade school? Where are they going to go? How are they what are they focusing on? How are they going to do these things? How are they going to live on their own? Just all these things on a really basic level, not to mention, what are they going to believe in? What do they think justice is? Like, how do they feel about rebellion? Like all these kinds of things. And then when you get to put that into a much more like an epic situation, which Star Wars is, it's always galactic. You have to have galactic stakes in a Star War. But then, you also, it's like, well, here are these like 16, 17-year-olds and they have a home, but they also, how do you figure out what they think about their immediate home, their family or culture, and then their planet's position in this republic that is, still expanding, like all these things you said. It's really complicated. And I like picking, like having characters from one like location, but who have different priorities, different needs, who want different things. And that creates like inherent character conflict. And it's really easy to put people in conflict with Jedi. The Jedi are, and during the High Republic in particular, are very dynamic, but still they have some very core tenets that, that's what makes them Jedi. And so it's fun and interesting, I think, to take teenagers in particular and kind of like push them against teenage Jedi and be like, what kind of messes can I create? How can I, make extra conflict? So that's what I particularly like about young adult as like an age category to write about.
Yeah. And again, I thought use Jackie and Yord Revenge was a great, almost, I don't want to say foil, but springboard or mirror to these new characters to flesh them out. Maybe my last question this about Crystal Crown, and this still gets at the sandbox question a little bit. You said it was on this one planet. The core of it is this one kind of challenge thing they have to go through in multiple phases, but kind of one, like you mentioned, the Hunger Games type of idea. It's inspired by that, it seems. Was that focus did that enable you then to give the room to really explore the tension between the characters, to not especially to not worry about being limited by what you have to do, has to line up with screen stories in the Acolyte, all the challenges that of course you face writing any novel, because everyone does, but that focus, did that really help?
Definitely. The Crystal Crown was always supposed to be whole unto itself. It's a standalone adventure. It should, like, theoretically, you can read it if you've never read any other Star Wars or seen any other Star Wars, but it should be enhanced if you've read or seen other Star Wars, or, make you want to go do those things. But it has to be contained. Like, that's part of the point of a book like this. And so putting the plot container around it, which is this competition, the planet-wide competition for teenagers that Jackie and Yord get pulled into, it's basically like, I've just got this plot container and I can put these 5 main characters, including Jackie and Yord, and just kind of shake them up. And, explore how they react differently to these very specific things and how they work together or how they don't. And so having those very purposefully basic plot points is really what lets me focus on the characterizations and the conflict and the messy relationships and that kind of thing. And that's my favorite thing to write. Like, I love it when people tell me what the plot should be.
So yeah, telling what the plot should be. Yeah, and that's the other side of the coin, right? Is that if it is contained enough, it has its own thing. I don't know, Joel, if you're coming back, we're good to go. There
Sorry.
you are. There you go. Yeah, I mean, because the challenge is to make, again, like in the question, to make it substantial enough to warrant its own publication. There's a blessing in that in those limits, right? It has to be within these certain things of, like I talk about like paper canon stories being character studies, and one of the things that comes out is we just get more time with Yord and Jeki. Cydia flirts with Yord. If you wanted to see what happens when someone flirts with Yord, read this book and how he reacts, right?
That sounds hilarious, honestly.
It is. And yeah, and so makes it really clear that, like we said, just tell good enough during the stakes will be what they are. What anything in there stand out to you for both especially with these characters?
I think what stood out to me is just kind of the philosophy of just having this be a standalone adventure that you didn't need to see the Acolyte for. And I think, I mean, I've never read Crystal Crown, so I'm not gonna I can't recommend the book. Just out of
I do. I recommend it. You should
Okay.
You should listen to it.
Okay, fair enough. But I once said, on Facebook that I was really like, I think the best Star Wars books are the ones that have the least caveats. And what I mean by least caveats is where I read a book and I'm like, okay, I could probably recommend this to someone who either has only seen like maybe the original 6 or 9 movies, and nothing else. And if I could recommend a Star Wars book where like that could be their first thing ever and they've never seen a Star Wars movie at all, that's probably like a great Star Wars book then, compared to like say, and this isn't even like a quality judgment, this is just sort of more of a thing where it's like, I would not recommend any of the Thrawn Ascendancy books unless I knew that person was already a big Thrawn fan and kind of knew Tim Zahn's work already.
Interesting.
So I would not recommend any of those books unless, like, know Tim Zahn, kind of know you're a big Thrawn fan, probably have read the other Thrawn books. Like there would be a lot of caveats for that. Like, or even like the Bad Batch novel. Like, I'll be honest, I'm enjoying it. It's really good. I don't know if I would recommend it to somebody who wasn't a fan of the Bad Batch already.
Right.
I don't think you get a good kick at it. I don't think you would enjoy it as much if you didn't watch the Bad Batch show. So that's that one caveat is probably watch the Bad Batch first before reading the book.
Yeah.
Whereas something like Live the Jedi, I mean, my swamp with that book, but I would genuinely recommend that to someone who like probably only read or not read, probably like seen the saga and are interested in Jedi, like interested in these Jedi characters. Here, read Live the Jedi. Here you go. Compared to like I would never recommend like Trial of the Jedi, and I like that book, but it's like caveat, you gotta read the whole High Republic probably first before you get there. So I understand that mentality. Is it always executed that way? I mean, I probably could say no, but I definitely can. I understand where that comes from. So I thought it's always kind of interesting to hear that.
Yeah, and I mean, well, that's the thing because we're about to launch into the High Republic in the interview, but yeah, I mean that's the thing. Well, first of all, I'm surprised you mentioned the Ascendancy because those are, in terms of actual plot, I mean, it's the most disconnected from anything forever in the entirety of Star Wars.
It both works to its advantage, but I also think it works to its disadvantage with caveats.
Yeah, like is this really Star Wars? Is going to get you Star Wars? Whereas, yeah, I mean, Crystal Crown get you into what a Star Wars novel is, especially Jedi, a Space Wizard novel. Oh, sorry, a YA Space Wizard novel is. But yeah, I mean, that's the funny thing with High Republic is it was so free, but then so interconnected within itself. And yeah, we're about to go into some of that in a second. But
I could do a whole thing about interconnected within itself. I won't do it, but I can
Yeah.
get into stuff like that later.
well, I mean, yeah, that we might have to, we might in a few minutes, but we'll see. Just a little bit, but yeah, we'll keep on going and then bring it home with. There's gonna be this section and then there's gonna be one last section at the end. There we go. So yeah. Fair enough. There we go. And speaking of people telling you, shifting gears to the High Republic, because a lot of that was built in when you join Team Luminous. So let's turn the clock back a bit. Phase 1, it's well on its way. You're invited onto the team to be a main author in Phase 2. And so, as mentioned, co-write Path of Deceit with Luminous Original, Justina Ireland, and Quest for the Planet X. And those two books, I mean, they do a heck of a lot of work establishing the Path of the Open Hand and therefore the origins of the Nile. A lot has been made about how this is a unique team effort, this High Republic initiative. And that thought is guiding some of my questions here. So what was it like jumping into such a well-oiled machine? How much, maybe just curious to know how much of the lore regarding the Path of the Open Hand had they already developed as part of maybe the backstory for Phase 1 in the Nile? And then how much were you able to contribute through Path of Deceit and Quest for Planet X?
Honestly, it was really easy for me to jump into the beginning of Phase 2, partly because Justina and I had been friends and working together for years before that. So, we had already sold a co-written YA fantasy novel when I was like onboarding into Project Luminous. And she and I had been critiquing each other's individual work for a long time. And so, because she was one of the original story architects, she really knew pretty much all of the, details that had been developed. And so she could just like basically download them to me. And we also had, story Bibles and things like that. But Justina was familiar with all of the main players, like the main writers, editors, like story group people. And so initially she was my point person. And that made it really, on my end, very seamless. Justina's amazing. She knows how to and when it came to actually doing the writing, Path of Deceit, the basic plot points, like the overarching plot points, were already there. They had been planned since the beginning. And then just created like the basic belief system of the Path of the Open Hand. So there was a lot like philosophically that was already built in when it came on. It was really about the details of writing. Like when you take, the Path of the Open Hand believes this is how the Force works. And it's, here's the hierarchy. You've got the Mother and the Herald, and then, a whole bunch of other people, and they've only been around this long. And we know the Mother is a bad guy, but nobody else knows that, like in the cult yet. And so when it came to actually writing, I got to just really develop pretty freely within that already developed sandbox, I guess. And I knew where everything was going to lead, like in broad strokes. We knew, from the moment I started writing Kevmo, I knew exactly where his endpoint was, which was super sad, and I didn't want to do it, but that's what I was hired to do. And so, and we knew generally like the big plot points that would be happening in Path of Vengeance too. Like we knew generally this is Marta's villain origin story, basically. But the everyday writing was very open. Like we could make up details after writing, as long as we were sticking to the main beats.
Yeah, I mean, again, another thing I love about High Republic, you guys really managed to balance having everything planned out, but also the freedom. I think makes some twists and turns, and one of my unrivaled favorites of all time. Like the major lead in phase 2. I gather developing her as a character was a bit of a team effort, but what kinds of things did you focus on when developing her? What, in your words, in your mind, makes her click? And of course, encountering Kevmo and going through what happens with him, but then of course carrying her story forward in A Closed Fist Has No Claws, which, I mean, we have Markion's helmet in the top corner there, but it isn't just about Markion; it's about Marta. So can you speak more about Marta and what really what you find so compelling about her?
Well, it's hard to completely distill, because I do think that on a certain level, A Closed Fist Has No Claws is my whole answer to this question.
Fair. Yeah.
And I was really happy that I got to write that story exactly how I wanted to. And I wrote, so Justina and I, for Path of Deceit, Justina wrote Yana and I wrote Marta, and then we shared Kevmo. And so it really, when it came to Marta, it was up to me to make her character foundation, like knowing what she was going to do in Path of Vengeance, for example. Like it needed to be believable that when Cav is writing her, like tearing people's throats out with her bare teeth, that this person in Path of Deceit starts out who you would never think she would do that. She wouldn't believe you if you were like, this is what you're going to do, a mere 3 months from now. And so that was really fun, finding, okay, what is it about her that makes her so like malleable on a certain level by bad actors and by her own passions. And I don't think that if we had started with a 25-year-old Marta or a 30-year-old Marta, you couldn't have told her story this way, because so much of it goes back to what I was saying about she was a teenager and she never got a chance to choose who she was going to be. She was told who she was going to be. And it wasn't until she meets Kevmo that someone actually challenges her on a level that she wants to understand, because her cousin, Yana, who's right about almost everything, they couldn't communicate because Yana has just isn't going to be like actually arguing force philosophy with her, which is what she needed, somebody to listen and respond, kind of. But so I do think that on a certain level, it's the fact that Marta was young and had a lot of traumatic things happen to her. And then nobody in her life was a good mentor, is part of what it comes down to. I mean, like that's, until the end of my days, I will say that's also what happened to Anakin. He did not have a good mentor to actually help him through his, passions and issues and anger and conflict. And instead, a bad person told him who to be. And that's basically what happens to Marta also. She breaks free of it, but she holds on to the worst of what she was told.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, Palpatine gets his voice in there. Also, I mean, this community, this family that Anakin trusted, from his point of view, they turn away and they reject him.
Yeah, from my point of view too.
Yeah, fair. Marta worships the mother, worships the ground she walks on, and turns out sold her a sack of used books or whatever the expression is. Was all in for the money. I mean, as someone who also is into real world religions, really fascinated by the way corrupt religious structures can affect young people. So it's a really compelling, character gripping story. Obviously, I'm guessing you. I mean, I'm just thinking of this question off the top of my head now, but I mean, I'm guessing nobody knows. You probably know as much as I do. What do you hope happens to Marta ultimately?
Oh, I have a lot of hopes for Marta, but basically, I'm sure none of them come true.
Fair. Sorry to put you on the hot seat like that.
I wish she would just go off on a different ship and stop being obsessed with the Force and the Evereni and look to the future instead of to the past. But I don't think that's what happens.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I'm muting myself there. So yeah, Joel, you wanted to jump in. What about that? All that stood out to you?
Yeah, I think it was interesting just the way the whole process of working in the High Republic kind of functions, where you do kind of have this general world building Bible outline. You kind of this is the Nile, these are the main characters, these are the important, these are kind of the overall events that we're kind of working for here. And obviously, but here's you can kind of have the freedom to do this. I almost though wish that, and this is just something I've always said, is I almost wish that more authors could have maybe save maybe have the OG be the ones who kind of do the more plot heavy stuff with the book, especially with the adult novels kind of being the things that are more plot heavy. And then kind of everyone else can kind of insert their own little story into the High Republic. Kind of what Kevin Scott had to do with Keith Trennis, where it's he had the specific story of Keith Trennis all plotted in his head and kind of works around what's
Lorna D and
kind of the more bigger events of the High Republic overall. In some way that's kind of how I think you operate in Star Wars in general, right? Where it's Tony Gilroy wants to do Andor set 5 years before A New Hope. Someone at Lucasfilm's well, okay, this is the Empire. You're the main characters, Vader, Palpatine, they're in charge. You need a big senator character. Here's Mon Mothma. There's one, or Bail. Pick one.
Or both.
Or both.
He gets both.
You got both eventually. You decide to start with Mothma, though, I guess.
Yeah.
These are kind of the big tentpole events, like the Gorman Massacre. And then, but obviously, the story is about Andor at the end of the day and his personal journey with Bix and Lucy and all that. So, I think that is definitely kind of what I've always figured is sort of the working process of getting to do a story, be it screen or paper. Is you are allowed the freedom to do this amount, but here are still the world building Bibles and the outlines and the rigmarole of that. It does seem like she was more hired to write out plot points that were kind of already decided upon with Marta Rowe than necessarily I got a character about a Jedi with 5 arms and 3 eyeballs. His name's Tinky.
A grand? What?
I don't know, right? It does seem like it was a bit more of a for hire than, hey, can I do this cool story of this Jedi who has to learn to love himself and okay, here's how the High Republic and here's the rules, work around that. But I thought that was interesting, but also kind of confirms a lot of what I've always suspected.
Yeah, I mean, what's fascinating then is just that those limitations that are put on her. I mean, just go to character and think about work through character and how Justina knew that Tessa would be able to write a brilliant deconstruction arc of for Marta. That, I mean, I hadn't thought of this, frankly, but it just the parallels to Anakin are brilliant, and that's probably one reason why I love Marta so much, is because I mean, it's a different take on the Anakin character. It's a similar kind of take. It's maybe a more unvarnished. You and I talk a lot about how responsible are the Jedi. Um, but thinking about Kevin Scott's comic that came out last week. Let's Oh my gosh, blank on the name. The Tales of the Nightland, Tales from the Nightlands, and that moment where there's a moment in there where Anakin sort of has a vision of Qui-Gon. It's said after Phantom Menace. The vision of Qui-Gon and lamenting that Qui-Gon isn't there, and that at the very least really plays on him. Yeah, Marta is really, especially the mother, is really, she's really used by her, and for these nefarious ends, and that's going to radicalize. That's going to radicalize her, and it makes that whole snap, the path of the closed fist, so believable. I found. So yeah, it definitely gets to the heart of it's a very, very big Star Wars theme, right? And so yeah. Anything more before we move on?
No, that was kind of it. That was the big one, where it's like, kind of the process of being an author and kind of an already somewhat pre-planned era that's been in development for probably a few years.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting to know. Yeah, there was Charles and Kevin and Justina and Kevin and Daniel had and Claudia had maybe more of a say. But then you have the contributions of the phase 2, phase 3, Tessa, George Mann, Zoraida, Lydia. So yeah, I mean, what I do wonder then is what kinds of, because I started to say, okay, is there flexibility? Was there kind of twists and bends in the road and things that had to pivot? And what I'm wondering, and be good to ask somebody who worked on High Republic, if there was any kind of need, if there was a need to pivot because of the way a character was written, especially in phase 2. And so
I know in the Art of the High Republic book, they talk about pivoting a little bit from the whole frontier thing.
Yeah.
Especially by the end of phase 3, they kind of gave that up.
Kristen Baver, that's what I need to ask, is Kristen Baver, by reading her books. There we go. All right, so this is the last section, and there's one moment in there that I'm trying not to be too embarrassed about, but I'm gonna wince whenever I see it. But is what it is. Yeah. So, don't worry, it's okay. There we go. This is slightly awkward segue. I do, because we're short on time, so I do, and thank you so much for taking the time. I do want to get to a more positive, happy theme. About in through High Republic and in San Diego, you refer to Digraph, who's the young non-binary character in Quest for the Planet X, who wears a binder. I think also Leograph. We could also speak to them. Sorry, my bad. Speak to them. You implied that writing Sky was a little bit of a risk. You're unsure. Whether or how they be received by the fans. Even hear me tripping up over the pronouns, and I wish I didn't, but anyway, you reflected on just how important that positive response was for Sky, for the whole diverse cast of what throughout the High Republic, and what the High Republic. What does, if you could say more about that, what does that positive, affirming presence of, and the response to queer characters mean for what the High Republic is?
By the time I was writing Quest for Planet X, and by the time I was like putting together the proposal for like the characters and the main storyline, I wasn't actually worried about the readership. The readership throughout phase 1 had been so incredibly enthusiastic and welcoming of the different marginalized identities that the phase 1 authors were putting into everything. And so I really wasn't worried about readers. I was worried about the bigger politics in publishing, because this was a middle grade novel. So it's for like 8 to 12-year-olds. And it's harder in general to put like gender and sexual identity into books for younger readers for a lot of reasons. And I was hoping that it would be like supported. But to be perfectly honest, Disney on a bigger media level has not had a good track record in the last 8 to 10 years with queer characters at all, and in Star Wars, but in general. And so I was a little bit worried that something like really top down was going to force the people who work with me directly, who I knew would want this kind of diversity, but would force their hand, and that I would need to pull back at least on some details, make it more coded and subtle and that kind of thing. And I was just incredibly, happy and affirmed that that wasn't the case ever. I not only didn't get pushback, but I got people on every level at Disney Publishing and Lucasfilm, of course, who wanted more and wanted me to lean into it more in this middle grade novel. And so that was, it hadn't been, but it was kind of surprising. And I was just so glad that I think that people, particularly Star Wars fans in general, and the readership, like people who read Star Wars books, and are involved in the books and like comics and like that side, this is what people want. People want the galaxy far, far away to be full of more kinds of people. Like that's what basically everybody wants. And it's so good to see that reflected in the the immediate politics of the publishing and things like that. So it meant a lot to me as a professional, because I've gotten pushback in other places, and books are being banned, kids books are being banned consistently across the country right now with any kinds of queer characters and Black characters, BIPOC characters, and authors. And so it's only gotten worse since then.
And even in Canada, we're not immune, sadly. And so on that note, if I could venture a bit more of a personal question, can you maybe discuss your thoughts on taking risks, even further risks, and in storytelling regarding representation, diverse characters? To what extent does that inspiration come from within yourself, and the relationship with the fan encouragement, with the publishing encouragement, and do you think that external fan response in practical ways makes it easier than for you to even go further and tell more diverse stories?
It definitely does. On a personal level, I wouldn't write books that I couldn't infuse this kind of honestly, agenda into them. Literature is supposed to be a cultural conversation. That's the point of literature, is to hold up mirrors or to like analyze things that people are dealing with, relationships, history, justice, all these things. And I am writing books. I write kid lit in particular, young adult literature, because I am here to grapple with these things and to write books for the kids who, like me, I didn't even know that, non-binary or gender fluid was a thing until I was in college, despite the fact that I had all of those feelings. I knew what I was, but didn't have the words for it. And kids who have access to books have access to those words now. And that's why it's so important for kids to have access to books.
Yeah.
And I won't, as long as Star Wars, for example, is willing to let me write Star Wars books that are, have my queer agenda and my, I want to push the arc of justice toward justice.
Right.
I would love to keep doing it because it's a big platform. Star Wars is a cultural commodity in and of itself. And it should be, in my opinion, fighting the good fight to make the world a better place. And I think in, my experience with the readership says the readership agrees with me about that.
And hopefully Andor winning the Emmy last night for
Right.
Mon Mothma's speech, that moment, right? Yeah. Hopefully go all to the top in Lucasfilm. Yeah, that's profound. I agree. Definitely the cultural conversation for sure. Tessa, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you taking the time to dive into both Crystal Crown and High Republic. Is there anything you're currently working on or coming out soon that you like to plug, you like to promote, and where can they find you on the internet?
Yes, I am working on books 2 and 3 in an epic fantasy trilogy. The first book came out in June, the same day as Trials of the Jedi, actually.
Thanks, Charles.
Yeah. It's called The Mercy Makers, and it is a big, sexy, epic adult fantasy about like radicalization, honestly, and like what makes people want to fight and like rebel. And it's also about messy relationships and sex because I like those things. So I'm working on books 2 and 3 right now. Everything else I'm working on is a super secret. So
sure.
And then I am, my website is just tessagratton.com. That's where all my contact is. I am on Blue Sky and Instagram relatively actively at just Tessa Gratton.
Yeah. Sounds good. Yes, and you can pick up Crystal Crown and all of the High Republic books and all the other books wherever books are sold. Again, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Oh, I'm super glad to have been here. Thanks for having me.
May the force be with you always. So yeah, that was interview with Tessa Gratton, and on a great note. Cultural conversation. Literature is a cultural conversation, and that's why it was so important for High Republic to have to really go above and beyond in representation.
I mean, my cynical take is that they don't, they higher up didn't do anything because they know they don't think people care about the books enough. So that's why I think they don't care. Like, to them, the movies are what matters. To them, the books can just do what they want, and we're not going to pay attention.
Right. Which, I mean, and that's the thing is, she said, that the on screen they haven't done as good of a job. Yeah, I mean, I do get what you mean, but at some point, here's the thing, at some point, High Republic did make a dent. Again, it's not going to get the viewership, you're right, of a show, but I think at some point, I mean, that's the thing though, is at some point, it also the dent that's made is going to carry over into a screen story. That's the books always lead and shows follow and those kinds of things. So, but again, the deeper theme of the cultural conversation and and having those words, because again, the like access to books, having those words. In Alberta, there was a similar kind of thing about books in the public libraries being taken out. So yeah, and in schools. So
We don't have libraries anymore, so pretty much.
well, there's that. But yeah, I mean, anything else that you mentioned that stands out to you?
Nope, that fantasy novel sounds fun though. I like the things
Yeah.
you're talking about. So,
Who
yeah,
doesn't?
who doesn't? What was I gonna say? But no, I mean
Ace
that was
people, to be
yeah.
fair. Anyway, sorry.
But no, it was a good interview. She seems very nice.
Yes.
So yeah, good job.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, and Tessa definitely carried it, which is great. And that's another thing is these folks, they're professional communicators at the professionals at communicating their own work and the thoughts and ideas behind it. And so, grateful to be able to be part of it and help out. And shout out to Catherine over at Penguin Random House and the team there for helping set this up. And yeah, if this format works for folks, I will say, live a plug. I will release the interview as an audio only bonus episode. The video, I want people to come here and watch the main podcast. The audio only episode, I'll gotta clean some things up and I'll clean everything up because the internet is the internet. But yeah, I will as an audio only episode. But yeah, that's the interview. Obviously there were more things we could have asked about Temptation of the Force, Jedi in Love, all that, and just the Jedi generally, because yeah, she mentioned with Marta and talking about Anakin, she probably has some interesting ideas about the Jedi and how they are between High Republic and the High Republic and the Late Republic, and their decline, which she gets to track a little bit, right? So maybe another time there'll be other opportunities, hopefully. So that but yeah, it was great. Again, grateful for Tessa for taking the time and digging in to the books. Definitely go give the Crystal Crown a look. If you like your Jackie, sure, but also really for the three characters that I mentioned, the three other main characters. You care about them. You care about what they want and care about. So there you go. I think that of it does it. We can wrap up. I've been going since 7:30, so I'm kind of wiped. There we go. But yeah, Joel, thanks for what's the word? Oh my gosh, I'm
Indulging.
Indulging. That is the precise word I was going for.
Well,
I've used a lot of. Thanks for indulging this format.
If you can embrace this format, I still say you indulge me with an audio commentary format.
Okay, you have.
Well, you would do Revenge of the Sith just for you.
Yeah,
although,
we'll do. So good.
You froze for like a hot second, so
It's
I
okay.
was about just to make it a little tolerable. But I swear it will work. People have done this on YouTube.
I'd rather do like a Clone Wars episode or an Ahsoka episode or something.
For a shorter, okay, we can do a shorter one.
Yeah,
it's just not the Force Awakens, but
yeah, well, fair is fair. Fair is fair. But yeah, and folks, if folks were watching or listening, like this format, please do let me know. Give me feedback. It's the first time me rewatching an interview, and I know some things I want to do differently, so don't you worry. But please do let me know if you have any thoughts and feels. Thoughts about whatever Tessa said, everything that Tessa said about High Republic, about the Crystal Crown, about Marta Rowe, about representation. Please do let us know. Comment boxes down below, as well as on the social medias. And speaking of the social medias, Joel, again, thanks for a great episode. Where can they find us on the internet?
You can find me at JID2024 on Blue Sky, JID2024 on Blue Sky. You'd find us at the Ion Can Pod, EYEONCANONPOD at bluesky.social.
Just Ion Canon, EYEONCANON.biscuit.
Yes.
Yes.
Please follow us. I post stuff. I want reactions. But
Unabashed.
our episode did get retweeted by Tessa Gratton. So
Yeah, there you go.
hi.
There you
go. Enjoy. Hi. Very good interview if you're listening.
Yeah.
I am right there on our Blue Sky, making connections to Aftermath and the Ahsoka series.
Nice.
I would love to hear people's thoughts.
There you go. Yes, we got our Ion Canon. You can follow ioncanon.biscuit.social. It's also on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads down there at Ion Canon Pod. But I should probably remove that. No to that. Mostly, yeah. At the SW is where you want to get more of the Instagram, Twitter content there, especially Instagram, and they're also on Blue Sky. You can follow my personals, MNEUG1138. That's Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky as well. Beaches.foodie on Instagram, and NEUG485 on Twitter. And I can find the Tractor Beam, Star Wars comics reviews on Blue Sky, the Tractor Beam there. So please do check that out. Also check out on Wednesday, ongoing number 5 and Boba Fett Black, White, and Red. Looking forward to digging into that, and then coming back at you next week. What are we doing here? What are we doing internet? Come back at you next week. Continuing kind of our conversation last week, and even who really won the Clone Wars, and not just Sheev, but who else? and how did Sheev win the Clone Wars and all that? So, another good old deep dive we're doing. But please do check that out. Also, do follow Tessa Gratton at Tessa Gratton on Blue Sky and Instagram, and get those books. Get those books wherever they're sold. Yeah, that adult fantasy does sound fascinating, especially in our time, day and age. So gonna check that out. But that does it for this episode of the Ion Canon podcast. Thanks everyone for joining us. Hopefully joining next week. But until Joel, let's blow this thing and head home.